Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate in G7 summit in Canada's Kananaskis later today. Will hold bilateral meetings with leaders of Italy, Canada and Ukraine on summit sidelines. Israel and Iran continue to conduct extensive strikes on fifth day of the conflict. Israeli kills Iran's wartime chief of staff. Iran strikes Israel's military intelligence office and Mossad's operational center. Indian students moved out of Tehran over safety concerns. Some Indians leave Iran through border with Armenia. MEA sets up 24/7 control room in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Canada this morning to attend the G7 summit at Kananaskis, with discussions with world leaders to be focused on crucial global issues including energy security, technology and innovation. Upon his arrival, PM Modi in a post on social media said, and I quote, landed in Calgary, Canada to take part in the G7 summit. Will be meeting various leaders at the summit and sharing my thoughts on important global issues. Will also be emphasizing the priorities of the Global South, unquote. PM Modi is visiting Canada at the invitation of Canadian Prime Minister Macrons after successfully concluding his two-day visit to Cyprus. This is Prime Minister Modi's first visit to Canada in a decade. He is on a four-day, three-nation visit of Cyprus, Canada and Croatia. And DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh reports from Canada's Alberta.
As the gathering of the leaders of arguably the most powerful 7 nations of the world, the Western powers, began here in the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, war continues to dominate the agenda of the G7. And it's not the Russia-Ukraine war alone, given the fact that President Zelensky has been invited to attend this time around. It is the latest Israel-Iran conflict that continues to dominate the agenda here in Canada.
While Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney wants to push his agenda for strengthening global peace and security, building critical mineral supply chains and creating jobs, issues such as US tariffs and the conflicts in West Asia and Ukraine continue to dominate the summit.
Der Fortschritt des Irans.
This issue, Iran-Israel conflict, will be very high on the agenda of the G7 summit.
Freitag militärische Ziele.
And this is an issue on which there are divisions within the grouping on how the conflict could be brought to an end. All that the G7 leaders could agree upon is to issue a joint statement calling for de-escalation. Canada has already ditched the idea of a comprehensive joint communique and is expected to issue chair summaries instead. Apart from the G7 countries, leaders from India, Ukraine, Mexico, Australia, South Africa, South Korea and Brazil will be attending the outreach session on June 17th. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Canada, marking the second leg of his three-nation tour after Cyprus. He will exchange views with leaders of G7 countries, other invited outreach countries, and heads of international organizations at the summit on crucial global issues, including energy security, technology and innovation, particularly the AI energy nexus and quantum-related issues.
This is the 6th consecutive time that India has been invited as a G7 guest country, which speaks for itself about India's importance in the world. There will be discussions on the sidelines within the G7 and also on the sidelines with all the invitee countries, with the G7 countries, especially on topics of energy security, innovation, emerging technologies, quantum, AI, things which affect all of us today.
The Prime Minister will also hold several bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the summit.
Apart from India's participation in the outreach session of the G7, Prime Minister Modi's bilateral engagements with world leaders would be significant, especially the one with Mark Carney, which could well prove to be an opportunity to reset the ties between the two nations. With cameraman N.A. Sivakumar, this is Amrit Pal Singh for DD India in Alberta, Canada.
And the group of 7 nations have expressed support for Israel and labelled its rival Iran as a source of instability in West Asia. In a statement issued late on Monday, the leaders called for peace and stability in the region. The joint statement backed by Trump, released by Canada, urged that the resolution of the Iranian crisis leads to a broader de-escalation of hostilities in the Middle East, including a ceasefire in Gaza. The statement also said that Israel has a right to defend itself and stressed the importance of protection of civilians as the growing attacks kill civilians on both sides. Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and the United States also stated their conviction that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The air war between Iran and Israel, which began on Friday when Israel attacked Iran with airstrikes, has raised alarms in a region that had already been on edge since the start of Israel's military assault on Gaza in October 2023. And US President Donald Trump cut short his G7 summit earlier today, although he rejected claims that his early departure from the G7 summit was related to efforts towards a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Trump rebuffed French President Emmanuel Macron's claims that he left the G7 summit to work on a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Trump dismissed the assertion as incorrect, saying Macron had no understanding of the real reason for his return, which he hinted was related to something far more significant. He added that whether purposely or not, Emmanuel Macron always gets it wrong. Stay tuned. Earlier, French President Macron suggested that Trump had made an offer for a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and nuclear talks with Iran could resume once a ceasefire is achieved. Now, Iran and Israel continue to trade fire for the 5th night, with a new wave of Iranian strikes across central Israel reported. There were direct impacts from those Iranian missiles in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Sirens blared before blasts were heard as multiple smoke trails appeared in the slightly overcast sky above Tel Aviv. The Israeli army said its defensive systems were operating to intercept an incoming threat after it identified missiles launched from Iran. Meanwhile, Israeli military said it has killed Iran's wartime chief of staff in overnight strikes on western Iran. In an official statement, the Israel Defense Forces said during the strikes, dozens of surface-to-surface missile storage and launch infrastructure facilities were struck. Surface-to-air missile launchers and UAV storage sites were also struck in western Iran. One clip appeared to show a strike on a surface-to-air launcher holding 3 missiles. After a new wave of strikes, both countries activated their missile defense systems overnight, with Israel's army briefly urging residents to seek shelter. Earlier, Iranian media reported explosions and heavy air defense fire in Tehran early on Tuesday. Air defenses were activated also in Natanz, home to key nuclear installations. Iran has meanwhile closed its airspace until 1400 local time, that is 10:30 GMT, in order to protect the safety of passengers and flight security. Iran's airspace has been shut since Israel's attacks last Friday, and flights have taken alternative routes as the two countries continue to trade strikes. And amid escalating Iran-Israel conflict, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned that Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei could end up like former Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein.
I warn the Iranian dictator from continuing to commit war crimes and fire missiles at Israeli citizens. He should remember what happened to the dictator in the country neighboring Iran who took this path against the state of Israel. We will continue today as well to operate against regime targets and military targets in Tehran. as we did against the Propaganda and Incitement Broadcasting Authority.
And Indian students in Tehran have been moved out of the city for reasons of safety through arrangements made by the Indian Embassy. In a statement issued by the Ministry of External Affairs, other residents who are self-sufficient in terms of transport have also been advised to move out of the city in view of the developing situation. Separately, some Indians have been facilitated to leave Iran through the border with Armenia. The embassy remains continuously in touch with the community with a view to extending all feasible assistance. Further advisories may be issued given the fluid situation. India's Ministry of External Affairs on Tuesday set up a 24/7 control room in New Delhi. Additionally, the Indian Embassy in Tehran has activated an emergency helpline to assist Indian nationals in the region. These are the contact details of the control room: 1-800-118797 and plus 91-11230-12113 plus 91-11230-14104, 230-17905 and 9968291988. And this is the email ID situationroom@mea.gov.in. In addition, the Embassy of India in Tehran has set up a 24/7 emergency helpline with contact details on the screen. For call, one can dial 989128109115 plus 989128109109, while plus 989010445557 plus 989015993320 plus 918086871709 are available for WhatsApp. Also, for Bandar Abbas, one can dial plus 989177699036, Zahedan plus 989396356649, and this is the email ID cons.tehran@mea.gov.in. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. DNA tests confirmed the identities of 135 victims who died in the fatal Air India plane crash on June 12th. Stay with us to know more. Two Air India flights faced mid-journey disruptions in less than 24 hours, triggering safety protocols and precautionary landings. And in the run-up for the 11th International Day of Yoga, India's Border Security Force personnel practiced yoga in Jaisalmer, Rajasthan.
Namaskaram from
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Updates on Ahmedabad plane crash now. 5 days after the unfortunate incident, authorities continue to work around the clock to ensure that DNA samples could be matched and remains handed over to grieving families as quickly as possible. So far, tests have verified the identities of 135 victims who died on June 12 crash, and the mortal remains of 101 victims were handed over to their families. The testing is being done by teams from the FSL and National Forensic Sciences University. The Gujarat government is closely coordinating with the civil hospital to ensure smooth communication between officials and victims' families. Meanwhile, the first meeting of the high-level committee set up by the government to investigate the tragic plane crash was held in New Delhi on Monday. chaired by the Union Home Secretary Govind Mohan. The members, including Secretary Ministry of Civil Aviation, senior officials from Home Ministry, officials of Home Department and State Disaster Response Authority of Gujarat, Police Commissioner of Ahmedabad, Director General of Inspection and Safety in the Indian Air Force and Director General of Bureau of Civil Aviation Security also attended the meeting. The panel will submit its report within 3 months, which is expected to focus on formulating standard operating procedures for preventing such occurrences in the future. A separate investigation is also being carried out by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, which is looking into the technical aspects of the crash. Air India's Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner aircraft operating a flight from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick crashed soon after the takeoff last week. Only one person survived out of the 242 people on board the plane. And mortal remains of Captain Sumit Sabharwal have been brought to a crematorium in Mumbai for the last rites. The 56-year-old pilot was flying the ill-fated London-bound Air India flight that crashed soon after the takeoff in Ahmedabad on June 12th. Captain Sabharwal's mortal remains were brought to Mumbai by a flight this morning after his identity was confirmed through DNA testing. And domestic airlines see a rise in cancellations, rescheduling after Ahmedabad crash. Two Air India group flights face mid-journey disruptions in less than 24 hours, triggering safety protocols and precautionary landings. One flight was en route from the US, the other a domestic service from Delhi. In the early hours of Tuesday, an Air India flight from San Francisco to Mumbai developed a technical snag in one of its engines, forcing passengers to deplane during a scheduled stop at Kolkata Airport. Passengers were asked to deplane as a precaution, and the airline informed them that the step was taken in the interest of flight safety. Meanwhile, on Monday, an Air India Express flight from Delhi to Ranchi was forced to return to the capital shortly after takeoff. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 headed for Ranchi's Birsa Munda Airport was suspected to have developed a technical fault mid-air. After an inspection, the aircraft was cleared for operations and resumed normal service. An Indigo Flight 6E2706 from Muscat, Kochi, Delhi also made an emergency landing at Nagpur Airport after a bomb threat was received. All passengers were deboarded. Investigation is underway. Nothing suspicious has been found so far. Shifting focus, as predicted by India's Weather Office, light to moderate rain swept across several parts of Delhi and its adjoining areas. The rainfall was accompanied by gusty winds reaching speeds of up to 70 kilometers an hour. The spell of rain brought relief to Delhiites after days of scorching heat. The India Met Department has issued a yellow alert for both Tuesday and Wednesday, indicating the likelihood of light to moderate rain across the city. Intermittent rain activity is expected to continue in the region, setting the stage for a wet week and keeping heat waves at bay. Typically, the monsoon reaches Delhi by June 27, but this year it is progressing faster than usual. A Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, Dr. V. Anantha Nageshwaran, on Tuesday delivered a lecture at Kerala Raj Bhavan on the theme Global Economic Trends, India's Challenges and Prospects. In his speech, Dr. Nageshwaran cautioned that the world is entering a new era of uncertainty, with an emerging trend of economic inwardness among nations becoming increasingly dominant. In the evolving global scenario, Dr. Nageshwaran emphasized the need for India to safeguard itself against over-dependence on any single nation. Underlining the importance of building resilience in supply chains, he underscored that cost alone should not determine our sourcing strategies. Diversification is the key. Highlighting India's comparative advantage, especially during trade regimes such as Trump-era tariff structure, he noted that the country has a window of the next 30 years to establish itself as a reliable global manufacturing hub. And the past few years saw higher inflation around the globe, including in Europe and in Germany, where especially higher energy prices pose challenges for consumers. Now, German grocery chains are lowering their prices. Lars Holter is with DW and joins me from Berlin. Lars, a major price cut in groceries, is it helping the consumers?
thanks for having me. A short answer, yes, absolutely. Long answer, it's complicated. Let's take a closer look at what's happening these days. Lidl is the largest German retailer and grocer, and they have just announced pretty suddenly, actually, this past weekend, that they would lower prices on 500 articles, and they're even calling it the largest price cut in their history. Now, you would think that that puts them in an incredibly strong position with customers flocking to those Lidl stores for all the bargains. However, Germany only has 4 major grocery chains, and they are eyeing each other closely. So, of course, right after Lidl announced these price cuts, the others followed suit. With Aldi, that's a discounter known in many markets outside Germany as well, cutting prices on 100 products, and the other 2 companies doing pretty much the same. So this is not really helping one particular company anymore, because German consumers are usually very quick to figure out where to shop for cheap. And with pretty much all grocery chains cutting prices, consumer patterns will likely not change. But yes, consumers are set to save around 2% on their groceries this week and the coming weeks compared to what they had to pay until last week.
All right, Lars, we'll leave that at. Thanks for your time. Moving on, as India prepares for the 11th International Day of Yoga on Saturday, June 21st, yoga sessions were held at various locations with participants performing traditional poses. The Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga kicked off Yoga Bandhan in New Delhi as part of the build-up to International Day of Yoga 2025. The event began with a serene prayer and warm introductions as foreign delegates joined hands in the spirit of yoga and global harmony. Organized by the Ministry of Ayush, Yoga Bandhan is one of 10 signature events under International Day of Yoga 2025 aimed at strengthening global ties, though institutional and people-to-people connections in yoga. Participants will engage in cultural visits, wellness sessions and collaborative dialogues leading up to the grand celebration on June 21st. Rajasthan Chief Minister Bhajan Lal Sharma led a yoga session at his official residence on Tuesday, joined by students and security staff. He urged people to make yoga an integral part of their lives. The Chief Minister participated in the yoga session with students and security personnel. He thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi for taking yoga to the global stage. In Rajasthan itself, Border Security Force troops performed yoga at Indo-Pak border outpost. The troops, dressed in conventional army cargo pants and white shirts, were seen performing various yoga asanas as part of an initiative to promote overall well-being and message of embracing yoga in everyday life. And ahead of International Day of Yoga, people in Uttar Pradesh's Prayagraj gathered in large numbers to perform yoga in the water. Hundreds of participants of all ages performed various yoga asanas in the water, including Surya Namaskar. They not only formed a symbolic circle of yoga with style, but also held up posters to raise awareness about International Day of Yoga. Governor of Sikkim Om Prakash Mathur and State Health Minister G.T. Dhungel also performed yoga at Raj Bhavan in the state capital of Gangtok. Differently abled individuals attended the event, where the governor wished for the well-being of everyone and emphasized the importance of inclusivity in yoga. Under the theme of Yoga Andhra, month-long activities are being conducted across the state. The session was held at Sri Kota Durgamma Temple in Palkonda of Sri Kakulam district and famous Sun Temple of Arasavalli in Sri Kakulam district. A massive yoga awareness program held at a Sri Venkateshwara University in Tirupati, in which a large number of students and faculty participated. Over 2 crore people are expected to participate in the event. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.